For the first time in his career, LeBron James has been eliminated in the first round. Devin Booker assassinated the King with a 47-point performance, defeating the Lakers by 13 in the Staples Center. This win also cemented Phoenix, ending an 11-year-long series-winning playoff drought. As a Suns fan, I don't think I've ever felt this feeling before. And for the NBA, this is something we haven't seen in over 14 years. This is also one of the few times in NBA history where neither of the teams who made the finals the year before don't make it past the first round. So today we're going to do a quick post-game 6 analysis, look at how each stars of the Suns and the Lakers performed this series, and most importantly, see what is next for LeBron after this unprecedented loss. What's up guys? If you like the NBA content, or just even NBA 2K, go ahead and subscribe to the channel to stay up to date with my future content. So the game starts off basically with Devin Booker turning all of his sliders up to 100 and hitting some of the most impressive and difficult shots I've ever seen. Both Anthony Davis and Chris Paul get injured halfway into the first. Paul is able to return, but Davis does not. And also a quick side note about Anthony Davis, I don't shame him for getting injured and leaving this game. He didn't look good out there at all, and you could see the pain on his face. Paul and Booker were also attacking him nearly every play, and he was just not nearly as versatile and as athletic as he usually is. Booker and the Suns continued to play perfect basketball up through the first half, LeBron playing laid back and incredibly passive. Going into the third quarter, the Lakers did get some momentum of their own. Wesley Matthews, Dennis Schroeder, and KCP all playing some of the best defense I've ever seen them play. A lot of double teaming and intense physical defense on the Phoenix guards. Unfortunately for Phoenix, Cameron Payne did not do the same thing that he's done a few games before. He was missing easy layups and not being the guy that we've seen the last few games. Despite Phoenix having a near 30-point lead at one point, the Lakers were able to trim it down to just 10. This was led by brilliant bench play from both Taylor, Horton Tucker, and of course LeBron James. For a brief moment, LeBron turned back the clock, attacking the rim on nearly every play and leading a comeback. With 8 minutes left in the fourth, LeBron is subbed out, more gas than I think I've ever seen him before. Unfortunately, this does end the Lakers' run, as Phoenix then went on a 10-2 scoring run to quell any hopeful Laker comeback. And just like that, his streak was over. And for the Suns, their drought has ended. Let's talk about Phoenix a little bit. Devin Booker was nothing short of amazing this series. Somewhat as I expected, he raised his game, leading the Suns by averaging 30.6 rebounds, 5 assists. He put up a 34, a 31, and a 30-point game in the series, capping it off with a 47-point game. Booker was everything the Suns needed these playoffs. His defense and playmaking were also quite spectacular too. Depending on how the Suns finish the playoff run, he may be good enough to enter himself into the superstar conversation, much like Butler last year. As a Suns fan, I would cry myself to sleep every night knowing that we missed out on Luka Doncic and Trae Young. But for the first time ever, I was actually able to sleep well knowing how well Ayton was playing. Before Game 6, where he didn't play much, he was averaging 2 more rebounds and 5 more points per game compared to his usual totals. Out of everyone on the Suns, Ayton was one of the last guys who I thought would elevate his game, but his down-low scoring was tremendous, averaging 80% from the field. His rebounding was insane, averaging more rebounds than Anthony Davis and Andre Drummond. I wouldn't go that far to say it, but you can make an argument that he outplayed Anthony Davis this series, especially if you look how he has been twice as efficient. But Drummond doesn't even look like he belongs in the same league as Ayton. Ayton has been phenomenal. He looks like the center that Phoenix wanted to draft a few years ago, and he looks like the Kobe and Shaq duo that we had all dreamt about. In this series, Chris Paul looked amazing for about 2 quarters. Ever since gaining his shoulder injury, Paul has just been a shell of himself, sometimes not even being able to shoot the ball. Regardless, I think Paul has been a pretty okay player, and thanks to some amazing play from Cameron Payne, Paul's injury wasn't noticed as much as you thought it would have been. He had an 18-7 game in Game 4. I expect Paul will go back to at least 80% of his former self by the next round. But as far as this series, Cameron Payne has been the most shocking player of this series. Seeing that Paul went down, Payne stepped up to the plate and went off. He was averaging 8 points in the regular season, and in the playoffs, he had a 19-point, 15-point, 13-point, and 16-point game coming off of the bench for Phoenix. Payne has gone to the point where I would argue he was carrying the Suns through rough stretches and being the perfect definition of a spark off the bench. Payne has just been one of the most important players to Phoenix, especially with Paul going down. If he can continue this play, he is going to earn a bag in free agency, and I hope Phoenix is the one who throws it at him. Okay, first let's talk about Anthony Davis for the Lakers. Davis just looked off all series. His shots were not falling through at a very high rate, and his numbers were down significantly from what they were in last year's playoff run. He also wasn't nearly as physical as I would have liked to see him, partially due to his own shortcomings, lack of the Lakers spacing, and just good overall defense by Phoenix. Davis was shooting a lot of shots from outside the paint and from 3, and like I've said many times before, if you're Anthony Davis going up against the smaller person like Mikal Bridges or Jay Crowder, that is a huge win for Phoenix every time. Defensively, he held up quite well, but like I said, he is just not the Anthony Davis of last year. So the Lakers have gone out and said that they want to make Andre Drummond be a part of their long-term plans. I still can't figure out why. I just believe that Drummond is mostly an empty stats guy. He finished as the worst big man in the league when finishing around the rim, and his high amounts of rebounds don't make up for that. He has also been making defensive mistakes all year, and DeAndre Ayton has just been dominating him. Even Dario Saric had a few moments. Drummond's lack of spacing can also make it difficult for Davis to score down low. If Drummond is down low, Ayton can easily rotate over or sag off to prevent AD from attacking the basket, making both Drummond and Davis less effective. Despite given more playing time, Dennis Schroeder is scoring a lot less this year than last year as his 6th man. On top of that, he rejected a 4-year, $80 million contract extension by the Lakers. So what does he do? He averages 14 points and 3 assists, along with his famous 0.0 for 9 game. Yeah, not exactly a big performance. I don't want to be completely harsh of Dennis. He did play well in quite a few games this series, but he hasn't been the guy. I am surprised if the Lakers don't try and go out and sign them, but in free agency, I don't think he's going to get that $80 million a year that he was offered. Can somebody please tell me why Montrezl Harrell is not starting? Honestly, I don't get it. He wins the 6th man of the year, signs with LA where we think he and Davis will form a duo, and then having the best season of his career, they bring him off the bench to Andre Drummond? What are you doing, LA? Outside of the rebounding, I would argue that Harrell is better than Drummond in nearly every single way. And just watching the games against the Suns, you can see that, especially in Game 1 where he had 12 points in 15 minutes. He didn't play in Game 2 or 3 and only played 5 minutes in Game 4. Then, in Game 5, he scores 9 points in 12 minutes. I am convinced the only reason the Lakers signed Harrell was so that the Clippers couldn't have him. I have no clue why he isn't playing more, because he's been good nearly every time he stepped up on the court against Phoenix. LeBron James, the man who terrorized the NBA for years, notably never losing and having a 14-0 perfect first-round record, has lost for the first time. The Suns ended this. Of course, the LeBron haters are like sharks smelling blood, watching LeBron pass the ball once and calling him weak. And LeBron sexuals are blaming the referees, injuries, or Dennis Schroeder. I don't really see either of these takes as being that strong. Right now, I think that we're seeing a terribly injured, regressing LeBron James, as long as a Lakers team that isn't nearly as strong and as well coached as we thought. Going into this, I do want to say that I am a bit more of a LeBron fan, and I hold him in a bit more of a positive light than most NBA fans, but I also can't deny the reality in front of me. As much as I love to watch LeBron go crazy night after night, and as much as I want to see him catch or even challenge Jordan, I don't think he's at that level anymore. First, let's talk regression. LeBron is someone who appears to be the definition of ageless, but as they say, Father Time is undefeated, and he is finally starting to strike some blows to LeBron. This year, LeBron averaged 25, 8, and 8. While those stats hardly sound like regression, LeBron's playstyle, most notably his shot selection, is quite different. LeBron has been playing a bit more timid, focusing to pass more often than shoot. His shot selection has also been noticeably different throughout the season, as he has shot less at the rim and less from 3 to 10 feet. He's also averaging a few less dunks per game than he did the year before. While LeBron has become a better shooter as he reaches the end of his career, he is also shooting for more mid-range shots, with a near 30% increase on his shots from 10 to 16 feet. While LeBron has slowed down a tiny bit, this injury is making him far worse than what we've ever seen before. For this series, LeBron is averaging 23.7 rebounds, 8 assists, noticeably down from the last year's final run. And LeBron has been, by LeBron standards, just kind of awful. Now, I don't think that those numbers sound bad, and to be honest, he has still been the best Lakers player, but he has looked like a shell of his former self. He's been incredibly passive, pass first, and hunting for that extra assist or pass. Rather than attacking the paint, he's been shooting threes at a much higher rate than usual. That's great since he converts them at a pretty decent rate, but overall, it's not what you expect LeBron James to be doing. So what does this mean for LeBron's future? LeBron has shown some signs of regression, but I will say, I think this ankle injury has slowed him down more than anything. Hopefully, LeBron will come back healthy, and I imagine next year we're going to see a similar 25, 8, and 8 from him. I think LeBron will slow down athletically, but I think his post play, 3-point game, and playmaking will still make him one of the best players in the league. But now there will definitely be some arguments for LeBron not being the best player in the league. I'm not saying I agree with this, but I'm seeing that the critics are going to have a lot more material to use against him, and there's going to be a lot more stuff for LeBron fans to justify him being the best player in the league. That is all for this video. I do have another video planned later talking a bit about this subject. It's going to be a bit of a follow-up, and it's going to be a what is going on with the Lakers and an off-season review for the LA Lakers, looking at the kind of adjustments that they need to make for next season. So if that is something that interests you, go ahead, like this video, subscribe to the channel, stay up to that, and I'll catch you guys later.